Though she's finally safe and sound as she slides towards her new home, Eve's thoughts remain fixed on the attack she survived just a few minutes ago. Her mind seizes, placing the blame entirely on herself when all she wants to do is move on and forget it ever happened. Hello everyone, and welcome to Firebrand Fables. Today's episode is part 2 in the story arc The Runaways, so spoiler warning in case you're not caught up yet. If you're a fan of fantasy, science fiction, and horror, then don't forget to like and subscribe, because new episodes release once every week. Want to get my stories up to a week ahead of schedule? Check out my Patreon for early access, written stories, daily updates, and more. Thanks for listening, and now for today's story. Racing toward the bright light at the bottom of the tunnel, she draws her hands up to her chest, clasps firmly onto the collar of her shirt, takes a deep breath, and closes her eyes. At the last second, she throws one hand up to pinch her nose shut before flying out of the tunnel and plunging into a cool spring of water. Drifting weightlessly, she gently swipes her arms through the water to reorient herself. But before she can swim to the surface, all of the strength suddenly drains from her body. She tiredly floats beneath the surface, closing her eyes and releasing the air from her lungs. A new swell of troubled thoughts enters her mind, turning her already sore limbs into stone. Finally opening her eyes again, she looks up at the rippling surface of the spring to see 3 silhouettes peering down at her. Eve pushes through the exhaustion, forcing her head above the water and filling her lungs with air once more. After using her knuckles to rub the water from her eyes, she's greeted by 3 familiar faces. The one in the middle, a boy with pointed ears, eyes that gleam like amber, and a touch of dirt in his hair, speaks up first. "Eve, what are you doing? You had us worried for a second there." His smile quickly fades to concern as he notices the look in her eye. Scanning across her features, he notices the scratch marks all over her face and clothes. "Whoa, are you okay?" The younger boy to the right of him, a humanoid with reddish-brown to beige-colored fur and a cat-like face, blurts out, "What happened? Did you get caught? Were you attacked?" His voice grows more and more anxious with each question. "Were you followed? Did anyone see you come in here?" asks the girl on the left in a cold and grilling tone. Her features are somewhat similar to those of a black monitor lizard. Eve stammers as her brain tries to answer everyone all at once and trips over itself instead. "Stop! Guys, give her some space," says the elf boy in the middle. Slowing his speech in an attempt to bring her focus and calm, he asks again, "Eve, are you hurt?" "I'm okay, Will." She turns her focus to the reptilian girl and answers with an air of irritation. "No one followed me. They didn't even know I was gone, but I ran into a bear." The younger boy tells her, "Oh my gods, Eve, you could have died!" "Nim, I'm fine, really. The image of the bear clawing and snapping at her as she shrinks just out of its reach re-enters her mind. "It couldn't catch me. I got away." "You should count yourself lucky." I think what Bryn is trying to say is that we're just glad you're safe. Will steps forward to hug her. Eve tries to pull back and put her arms up since she's still completely drenched, but Will ignores her protest and wraps his arms around her anyway. Nim joins in, wrapping his arms tightly around the both of them while firmly closing his eyes. Bryn stands there with a blank expression, like she's just waiting for them to stop hugging, but knows not to interrupt their social conventions. However, when Eve looks over to Bryn and nods for her to join them, she steps up and, with fading discomfort, adds herself to the group hug too. After the hug breaks, Will tells Eve, "You know, in a fair fight, I think you would have won." Eve scoffs and pushes his shoulder as the beginnings of a smile appear on her face. "No, really! I mean, come on! Nobody else is as good with a bow as you." Will's eyes shoot open and he darts across the room. He starts digging through a pile and murmuring to himself. While he's busy, Eve looks around the room again. A single word sticks in her mind. Home. When Will jogs back over, he's holding a wooden bow with intricate designs carved into the wood. We found it the next morning. I hope you didn't get into too much trouble for losing it. Wide-eyed and gasping in relief, Eve gently takes the bow from his hands. How did you... We followed the bird brain to its nest, waited for it to leave, and took it back, Nim answers. Eve looks at her friends, feeling a little speechless until eventually responding, Thank you. Will smiles at her. It was the least we could do. Besides, we had to get you something as a housewarming gift. Noticing a lingering trace of solemnness in Eve's eyes, an idea pops into Will's head. Hey, we should play bow tag. Eve starts to groan, but before she can protest, Will insists. Come on, it'll be fun. Please. I know you've been dying to use that bow again. Okay, you're right. Let's play. Eve adjusts her grip of the bow to the proper place, while grabbing the spare quiver she left for herself on a previous visit. She slings the quiver around her back, retrieves one of the many practice arrows contained within, and knocks it. Quietly, Nim comments, Man, I never win at bow tag. If you knew how to pick good hiding spots, then maybe you would, Nimrod. Bryn sneers. That's not my name. Bryn, knock it off. Will gives her a stern look before softening and facing Nim. Don't listen to her. He pauses, looking around the room for a moment before continuing. I tell you what, I just thought of a really good hiding spot. Why don't you take it? He watches as Nim's eyes light up. Wanting Nim to have fun, Eve tells him, I promise I'll let you go if I find you first, okay? He nods, seeming much more eager to play now that both Will and Eve are trying to help him. Alright. Eve shuts her eyes and starts counting. 1, 2, 3. Through a flurry of footsteps, she can hear Will whisper, Nim, over here! 28, 29, 30. Eve opens her eyes again and looks around the room. Nothing stands out immediately, so she begins prowling about the huge common room. She sneaks up to the middle of the room, where a big, hollow root stretches down from the center of the tree above and into the floor like a pillar. Darting through the opening in it, she yells, Gotcha! While looking up. However, the hollow core is empty all the way to the very top of the tree, where she can see the slightest hint of the night sky through rustling leaves. After exiting the core, she takes a moment and slips off her shoes to feel the cool, smooth stone and the moss that's as soft as cotton beneath her feet. She shifts directions and begins to walk along the walls of the room, tapping her fingers on the grip of her bow in anticipation. Suddenly, she hears 3 sounds in rapid succession: the scratching of claws against wood, a feline scream, and a loud splash. Eve closes her eyes, immediately aware of what just happened. When she shifts her gaze back in the direction of the spring, she notices a few broken roots among the many that loosely form the ceiling, and she watches as Nim scrambles to get out of the water. Closing her eyes and biting her lips to stop from smiling or laughing, she then hears a stifled, hissing chuckle from a section of the wall just ahead. Eve follows the wall, slowly and carefully, until she reaches the spot where she heard the noise. She stares into the thin roots that form the wall, noticing a strange texture to them. From within the roots, an eye appears out of nowhere. Ha! Eve draws the arrow back and aims it below the eye, but before she can loose the arrow, Bryn scurries off along the wall while her scales are still turning back to their normal charcoal color. Adjusting her aim in a flash and releasing the bowstring, Eve watches as her arrow flies after Bryn and misses by an inch. She chases her all around the room, readies another arrow, and launches it. The soft, rounded end of it smacks Bryn in the leg, making her slip and fall onto a giant, trampoline-like mushroom. Eve spins around and jogs over to the spring to find that Nim has hidden again. He did, however, leave behind a trail of water, so she stalks along the path of wet marks, saying, "Okay, Nim, I gave you a chance to get away. Now..." Eve hears rustling from behind, followed by rapid footsteps heading away. She draws her bow and spins around to spot Will racing toward Bryn. Loosing the dummy arrow, she watches it soar across the room and plant itself into Will's shoulder, sending him tumbling onto the mushroom beside Bryn before he can untag her. Resuming the search for Nim, Eve follows the trail of water up the wall and into the ceiling. The thick roots that occupy the room's ceiling contain several veins of sunlight, providing the room with a bright yet soft light, while also making it completely impossible for her to tell if Nim is hiding up there. Feeling certain that it's the only place he could be hiding, Eve jumps, grabs a low-hanging root, and pulls her head into the space above. She doesn't find Nim, but she does hear the roots on the other side of the room shake as Nim drops down. Eve panics as she realizes he's closer to the others than she is, and drops to the floor. By the time she gets a clear line of sight on the other side of the room, she watches as Nim finishes untagging the two of them. "No!" she yells with a smile, then darts after them. The game goes on for almost an hour, ending not in victory for one side or another, but rather joyful laughter and well-earned exhaustion. Matching the group's energy level, the veins of light within the roots darken, revealing a plethora of glowworms that shine like stars. Eventually choosing to collapse for the night within a cozy lounge space that's recessed into the floor, Nim and Bryn drift into a deep sleep, while Eve and Will stay up talking. Lying on the floor next to Will, Eve stares at the underside of the seats. Like the rest of the furniture, this bench ring looks like it was formed by molding the tree into the right shape, rather than being carved or sawed out of it. Eve runs her fingers from the edge of the moss cushions on top, down to a strange series of markings in the underside. "I keep forgetting to ask, what do these say?" she asks in a hushed tone. Will shakes his head. "No idea." He looks up to the ceiling where several more have been imprinted into the wood. I mean, Bryn knows how to make markings like those, but aside from the one she made above the entrance, she said the rest are just nonsense. After yawning, he continues. "I mostly just ignore them now. They were already here when I found the place." "Huh. I wonder..." Eve pauses, then asks, "Wait, are you saying you found the den first?" "Yeah. You didn't know?" Watching as she shakes her head in surprise, he gives a light, surprised scoff. "Huh. Alright, well, yeah. I came here on my own about..." Will squints up at the ceiling while silently mumbling to himself. "Oh, that must have been 2 years ago now? Not long after that, I ran into Nim." He smiles as he pictures the day they met. "I didn't even know he was following me. I was just out for a walk when he dropped out of nowhere and landed on my head." Eve brings her hand up to cover her mouth while snickering. "He sprang up, totally spooked, and bolted off. Meanwhile, I'm still lying flat on my back and seeing stars." He chuckles quietly and lets out a gentle sigh. "I caught him peeking at me from behind trees and stuff for the next week before he finally worked up the courage to say hi." His joyful tone turns more solemn. "I think it was about a year later that we met Bryn." Glancing over to Bryn as she yawns in her sleep, Eve sighs and her smile drops. "I know. She can be... difficult, but please try to cut her some slack. She's been through a lot." Eve furrows her brow as she points her eyes at Will, Nim, and lastly herself. "So have we." Will stares at her patiently. Please. If you saw how she was when she first got here, you're the best thing that's ever happened to her. And trust me, the bar was very low. A sense of understanding, or perhaps guilt, fills her chest. Fine. Thank you. He turns over and closes his eyes, telling her, we should get some rest. Eve doesn't close her eyes, though. Feeling wide awake, she goes back to watching the field of fake stars and occasionally getting distracted by the mystery of the unknown markings. And that's it for part 2, Where the Heart Is. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes. Also, make sure to check out my Patreon if you want to show the channel some support and get extra goodies while you're at it. I'd like to give a special thanks to Alex Kenoyer for writing and recording music for my stories. You can find him on Instagram at AlexKenoyer_. That's AlexKenoyer_. You can find a link to his page as well as my other ones down in the description. Thanks again for watching. See ya.